Welcome to Lynn's Warriors, where we fight every day to protect children, families, and communities from exploitation. Today, we are honored to speak with a national leader on the front lines of this mission. Our guest today is Tim Nestor. We're going to welcome him back, Vice President at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation in Washington, D.C., one of the nation's most respected organizations working to expose and eliminate sexual exploitation in all its forms. With a background in policy, advocacy, and strategic leadership, Tim has been instrumental in building campaigns that hold big tech, government, and institutions accountable while amplifying the voices of survivors from Capitol Hill to grassroots communities. His work focuses on dismantling the systems that normalize exploitation and creating real pathways for prevention, justice, and healing. The website, everybody, is endsexualexploitation.org. We welcome back to the Warriors, Tim Nestor. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. What an intro, too. Wow, I'm ready. I'm fired up. Let's do it.
And you should be fired up. And you know what? There's a lot more about you. It'll be in the body of the video. We got to get to you. I got to let you talk. We have a lot to say about this subject matter. I want to jump right in. I know you're a dad. I know you've been talking about it recently on NCOSE's own website and podcast, I should say, and exploitation. And I will link that interview in the body of this. But so much, Tim, does focus around girls and women, right?
Right.
And we at the Warriors want to really start bringing it out more about boys, young men. They're just as vulnerable. So let's start with, what are you seeing in terms of the unique risks boys are facing today?
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. I agree. A lot of the focus is on girls. And I got to tell you, I'm a dad of two girls, so I'm also very concerned about them and the way they view themselves, their own self-esteem, their body image, the comparison game, and then the darker side of online activity, social media for girls. 100% is a top priority for my wife and I and our family. But you're so right. There is a unique vulnerability that boys have. And I think it begins with the way that we view ourselves and see ourselves as either protectors or predators in this world. And I think a lot of times we're told to be aggressive and go and get it and take what's yours. And that's some voices. And other voices are going to be, hey, you're a protector. You need to defend. And that's what I love about NCOSE, defending dignity of all human beings. And so one of the things I think is important is to reestablish that defender characteristic for boys. And the vulnerability that's there is they're not going to give it to you, so you have to take it. I think that's the message we hear a lot. We hear that a lot from whether it's influencers or politicians or culture sometimes, and sometimes even those who I think have good intentions that keep saying it's men. Men are the problem. Men are the problem. And I want to look at my sons and look at myself in the mirror and say, no, you're the solution. You are part of the solution. You're a key part of this. And so what we've seen is that when men speak up, whether it is men who have been victimized, who are survivors, or men who have been able to step into this arena, into this movement, and make a difference and have their voices heard, we start to see a partnership build between the men and women who both want to see this exploitation come to an end. I think it's really, really important. And I've talked to my sons about this recently as they're teenagers. Now I got one in college. And I've said, you can be part of a change. You can be part of a movement that no longer it's a given that men just are going to exploit and going to take advantage. No more. No more. Men need to change that cycle. And I do believe it starts with fathers. I think that's a big place where it starts. Dads talking to your sons, connecting with them. I had a great conversation with Patrick Erlinson where he said there are some basic things you can do. Read together. Read to your young kids. Have conversations with them at a young age, but it doesn't always have to be about heavy topics. Just be a communicator with them regularly. Let them see what it looks like for a man to be a defender, a protector, someone who cares. So that's where I would start, is to say it begins in the home with dads and their kids.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. And I'm going to keep thanking you because I've really been trying to talk about this a lot. I'm here in New York City. I have to tell you, Tim, it's not like a welcome subject for me. In New York City, it's like, we want women and girls. I'm like, it's about everybody. It's exactly about dignity for everybody. Right. So let's bring, the conversation. Let's talk about it. And it sounds kind of simplistic, like talk about it. But that's the number one step. You got to talk. We got to talk about it. And we have to talk to our kids. And it does start, as you said, in the home. Right. We've got to go to, and I'm so thankful that your voice is speaking and so clearly, Tim, about all of this. We've got to talk about sextortion. I talk about it a lot. It's escalating, it's not getting better, it's expanding. I still get that look a lot like, what is that? I don't understand, or my child would never do that. So it really has, in my opinion, exploded online with boys and young men being targeted. How serious is this threat? And why, in my opinion, I think it gets less attention than some of the other subject matters.
It's incredibly serious. And you're right, boys are targeted for this. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. One of them is that I think boys are longing for connection. They're longing
Yeah.
for feeling valued and feeling wanted and important. And so when that perpetrator online finds that right target, and by the way, they do this at mass scale. They'll target everybody, and over time, who responds to them and who gives them that second look and opens that message or responds, that's where their attention shifts, and they target that need for connection, that need for belonging, that need for feeling important and valued. And it begins by usually connecting with them and saying, "Hey," a lot of times, as you know, Lynn, you've seen this a dozen times or more, where they'll say, I go to your school," and they'll have a picture of themselves. It looks like maybe a girl about their age, and they'll just pour compliments onto them. Because I think one of the things they've learned is that young men, there's two main languages, and you've heard of love languages before, I'm sure, but there's two main love languages that most young boys respond to: physical touch and words of affirmation. So as soon as you start giving them the hope of maybe a physical touch, because now there's a sexual component to this communication, and then also pouring out words of affirmation. "I think you're so smart. I think you're so funny, so handsome, good athlete,"
Yeah.
whatever it is. They start to feel fed, and then they become vulnerable and open up to whoever this person is they think is on the other side of the screen. And next thing you know, they've put themselves in a compromising position, as you've seen this play out before. And now this person all of a sudden pivots and says, "I've got images or videos of you that you just sent to me. And unless you fill in the blank demands, money, more content, whatever it is, I'm going to ruin your life." And it always plays out the same way. They end up releasing that footage or those images, and those boys' lives are changed forever.
Which brings me, you pointed out something, Tim, just want to go back on for a minute.
Yeah.
I want kids, or I want parents or grandparents, any family members listening, guardians, to
Mhm.
understand this is done at mass levels. This is organized
It's
crime for
yeah.
the most part. There are warehouses of people doing this, performing, correct, this criminal activity.
Right.
There are even, we've heard from our law enforcement we work with, criminal people trafficked that are
Mhm.
forced into doing this sextortion,
Mhm.
upon our boys and young men. So everybody has to understand that it is a national crisis, and
Mhm.
it's of that scope. It is large. It's not just your child. It
Right.
is all the kids. And like you said, whoever responds, they're going to go there and they're going to pick up
Mhm.
on that. So I want to ask you, it's funny. You also said, see, Tim, I'm always jumping around. You say something and I go off. I think of something else. I
I love it.
really think, though, just as I'm staring at you, though, like in the screen, right? And we love our internet because let's leverage it for good. You and me are talking together. It's a great thing, right?
Mhm.
But I guess that screen really, everybody really still thinks, for the most part, it puts that distance. So a
Mm.
boy in real life and a girl in real life probably wouldn't talk to a stranger like the way they're talking to each other online, right? I think,
Right.
does that sound crazy? I just thought of that as I'm looking at you. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it's that screen. They just think
Yeah.
they're anonymous or something. It puts some kind of guardrail up automatically, and it doesn't. It's really opening up the world
Yeah.
to your
You're right,
world.
'cause I think they've been safe in that space for so long, whether they're playing Minecraft online or whatever, playing a video game online with their friends, or maybe most of their social media experiences even have been very light and fine, just funny videos, silly memes, not a big deal. And so their guard is down. You're absolutely right. I think the guard is down. And even for parents, one of the saddest things we hear from parents on this who have talked to their kids, they've put up those protections. They've even told them the horror stories of what can happen and what to look out for. And the reality is, in our human condition, there's certain needs that we will have, especially as young people.
Yeah.
And if we're looking in the wrong places to fill those, or if we open ourselves up potentially to let someone step in and say, "Hey, I can address this need that you have," that's when the vulnerability kicks in. And that's why we believe at NCOSE that it's really these tech platforms, these big tech companies, that they own a huge portion of this to make their platforms safer. So when these perpetrators, as we've just discussed, are in mass scale reaching out to these kids, they should put a stop to it right there. And for them to pretend that they don't know that it's happening is absolutely, I'll just say it nicely, it's not accurate. I wanted to call it something else. It is
Tim,
not
you're
accurate.
so nice, Tim. I'm not that nice.
Yeah.
It's because
Yeah.
because how much more we have whistleblowers, we have actual
Yeah.
children, families, we have proof, we have dangerous algorithms, we have everything going on, right? Congressional hearings. Now, frankly, Tim, you and I will keep chipping away, keep working on this. We're not going anywhere. But Tim, I'm a little sick of it.
Yeah.
What else do we have to do? Well, I mean, maybe get rid of that Section 230, that old dusty thing. We could kick that thing to the curb. That's
That's
another
right.
program.
That's
But
right.
really, how much for our precious kids and disrupting families, disrupting lives? What else do they want from us?
Mm.
Something has to be done. I mean, this is just there's no other business that's allowed in my that I can think of in my lifetime that's allowed to operate like this. Just
Agreed.
pure chaos, do what they want,
Yeah.
right? People will
Yeah.
always say to me, Tim, why does this happen? I know what I answer all the time. If somebody said to you right now, well, why do they allow this? Why?
Mhm.
What's that bottom line that we always say why this is allowed? Why
It's
they
all
do
about
it?
profit. It's all about
That's
money.
it. Profit over people.
That's right. Yeah, it's always
That's it.
profit. And that's the incentive that I think is lacking in the big tech space because it's easy to make them the boogeyman and just want to take them down. And it's let's storm the streets and get rid of big tech. But the reality is they're not going anywhere. So how can we create an incentive
Yes.
for them to join us in making everything safer for our kids? That's what we really want. That's the ultimate goal, is not to boycott, not to put anyone out of business, unless of course
Yeah.
they refused. If they're completely refusing to ever make it safe, sure, I'm happy if they go out of business. But I think most of these companies, if the right incentive is put in place, they will join us in this effort. And you're right, 230 is where it begins. Let's get rid of immunity for big tech. Let's make sure that they can be held legally responsible for what happens on their platforms. Let's start there, at least when it comes to these issues of sextortion and this horrible abuse that happens. Let's start there. But then I want to see even more incentives to innovate on safety. Right now, we're seeing innovation in AI. It's very exciting. I get it. I'm a tech guy. I love what AI can do. It can make life easier in a lot of ways. I'm curious to see how it can improve the way that we even do this work. I'm excited about it, but I'm also very nervous about it. A lot of the things, it's developing so quickly, and there's so much investment in AI right now. I'd love to see that level of investment and innovation in safety. I mean, we did it with vehicles. We do it the same way with vehicles. Every year they're trying to find another way to get the better safety rating. How do we make sure that our make and model is at the highest safety rating possible? Well, why is that? Because they know that when people go to buy cars, that's one of the top priorities they're going to look for. And so they want to have that checkbox on their product. Okay, great. How do we do that with tech platforms as well? And I think as parents, we can do two main things. One, we can really take action and step in to the policy space. We can contact our local legislators and even in our state, because there are state level efforts that are really, really important in this space and federal level as well. So that's number one. We can be very active. But number two, we can speak with our wallet. What are the things you're subscribed
Yes.
to? What are the products that you buy? And can you maybe spend a little more to get a slightly less popular product that has more safety features and start to show them over time, like, hey, parents are really wanting to buy this type of product for their kids. If I'm Apple, I'm going, well, let's make one. Let's make a teen and kid friendly phone. Let's do that. Let's make a super safe device. I think until we show them with our money and with
Mhm.
our advocacy efforts, there's really not much incentive for them to do it outside of trying to scare them with legal efforts. So I want it to be both. I want 230 to go away so they now have the potential for being held legally responsible. But then I also want there to be a monetary, really positive incentive. Like, hey, this is big business to protect kids. And I want companies to start seeing it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all. I can't even add to that, except I always add something. Um, and we are talking about it now, and there's a lot of discussion on it. Develop. They see the problems. We
Mhm,
know it's about money and profit.
mhm,
Okay, people are speaking out. More organizations, individuals develop the products with safety in mind. I think they could still make probably more money, right? If even, and I'm not promoting this, people would even buy more devices. Again, I'm not promoting this as I'm thinking this out loud. If they knew there were safety features in place,
right,
for instance, and they're not.
right.
And so, really, in my opinion, I think the only way right now, unless they start losing a lot of money, I don't think, because talk is cheap, right, Tim? We hear we're doing our best. we're going to do this, or they put out a press release. We've done this, that. We know a lot of these things they put out. They say they've done safety features,
Right.
don't live up to it. It's just
Mhm.
kind of a slap on the back here. We've done something. Um,
Right.
it's very discouraging. And Tim, recently I was with the Heat Initiative here in New York at the Apple headquarters, which I
Oh,
live
yeah.
right
Mhm.
nearby. And we did a little march just
Yeah.
with parents, always with parents,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And Tim Cook came out, of the beautiful Fifth Avenue building, and it was the introduction that day. They were selling the iPhones 17, 18, 19, 25, whatever it was, 17. I can't, who could keep up with it, right? But what was sad, Tim? The priority for me is always helping the parents, being their cheerleader, being there for them, kind of thing. But both sides of the huge, used to be the GM building on Fifth Avenue, both
Mhm.
sides had overwhelming crowds of the public lined up.
That's right.
Once they opened those doors to get in there to get that iPhone 17. And I kept thinking, Tim, but why don't they line up for child safety?
Right.
like
Right.
I don't get it. Call me
That's right.
wacky. I
That's
don't
right.
get it, Tim.
They need to hear from parents. There was even a quote from a big tech company, and I won't say which one it was, but they just basically said, "Where are the if this is such a big issue, where are the waves of parents that are telling us this is happening?" And we look at it and say, "We're here. We've been saying it."
Yeah.
But I think I got to give them a little credit. They're waiting for the right number. I don't know what that number is, and that's why all of your listeners, all of the constituents, and all the parents that might ever hear this, I hope that they decide to step in and let their voice be heard. And there's a number of ways to do that. Contacting them. Maybe you're like, we can't get rid of these devices. They're too essential to our home. I get it. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But you can still let your voice be heard. You can still contact them, contact your legislator. Maybe you don't buy that next upgrade. Let them feel it a little bit. And if all of us do this, if we join together to say we're going to let our voice be heard, whether it's standing outside their offices for an amazing event like Heat Initiative did, or maybe it's just you're not buying the next product they release until it's safer. That's when they're gonna start making changes. That's when they'll notice, because it's just like what you said, it's profit over people right now, and I want them to start seeing that profit will increase when you prioritize people, and the best way to do that is to show them with how we're spending our money for that's the number one way, but there are other ways as well to have our voice be heard. It could be through conversations like this,
Yes.
where we're talking about out loud and spreading the word and educating people. But it also could be through the laws that are passed. And I think some of the state level laws, we shouldn't overlook those. Some of these state
Oh,
level
good
laws
ones. Good ones right
on
now.
app store accountability
Hmm.
and on age verification, there are some
Yes.
really important pieces of legislation that are currently being looked at and talked about. So tune in to what's happening in your state. And that's a huge way to make a difference.
I'm glad you said that, Tim, because I'm saying this. You're not saying it. I'm saying it. Actually, in my opinion, I'm always clarifying in my opinion, but the states are doing some better work right now than the federal government, in my opinion.
That's right.
So that's why we have to tune in, our communities, our state, see what's happening. And
That's
it's
right.
so important that we just keep sharing information and let people know that's a good thing,
That's right.
you know?
That's right.
So we've got to keep sharing, for instance, we worked hard at the Warriors age verification for like New Jersey and all
Hmm.
that type of thing. But
Hmm.
that's for another program. But there is a lot of great work being done at the state level. Now,
That's right.
I want to talk a little bit. You're a dad, fathers, a little bit more on that. Are critical protectors. We know that. We've kind of labeled them that. You mentioned that. But I think they're too often sidelined in society today. I do. Give us some more. You mentioned a few things. Say it's a first time father listening to this. Maybe they have a 5-year-old son or something like that, or a
Hmm.
daughter. What do you want them to do right now today? Because it's overwhelming. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
It's too much. I can't focus. And the
Yeah.
biggest thing, Tim, is they will close their eyes. They'll shut that door. They'll do nothing. We
Right.
don't want that. Give us a few tips, for a dad right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I think the mother-father partnership in raising kids is so essential. It can't be one or the other. It's like lifting a couch. You need to both be on either side lifting it together. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. So I do believe mom and dad, those roles, and they're going to be filled at different times by different people. I totally understand that. Every family setup is different. You might be listening to this or watching this and thinking, that sounds nice, but I don't have uh,
Right.
a father or mother position in my home. I'm doing it alone. I totally understand that. And you are doing good work if that is the situation that you're in. But I think there are ways that that father role can be the most effective. And number one is don't tune out. I think a lot of dads, and I'm guilty of this as well at times, and I do my best to lean back in. it's easy to tune out. As the noise gets louder, things in the home get more difficult, things get more complex. It's easy just to tune out and say, well, I'll just let them do whatever they want to do. And you can just watch the football game or whatever it is, get on your device and just kind of tune it out.
Yeah.
And I think as men, we are able to do that pretty easily, and it can be a really bad habit to fall into. So that's number one. Don't tune out. Stay tuned in while your kids are around, because before you know it, my first just went off to college. It's going to start steamrolling faster than I realize.
So
These
fast, Tim.
these
You have
kids are
no
gonna,
idea.
yeah, I'm already blown away that, and I see these pictures of him popping up from when he was learning how to ride a bike, and I'm like, what happened? Now he's buying his second car. I'm like, what is going
It
on?
goes faster and faster. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's
So
speeding up.
we can't afford to tune out. That's number one. Is stay tuned in to what's going on with your kids. What are their interests? What are their struggles? What are their personalities? Who are their friends? How are they spending their time? Get into their worlds a little bit. Sometimes that's as easy as sit down and play the game that they like, or to go out and throw the football in the backyard with them, or work on that craft or that puzzle with them. What is that thing that they like doing? And join them in it. Stay tuned in. That's number one. And I think number two, I think dads need to spend a little time being educated about the spaces where their kids spend time. Find out what's going on in their schools. What is it like on their
Yeah.
bus ride? Who is their bus driver? Do you know anything about who are the friends that they have? Do their friends have devices that you don't normally allow, but they're allowed to be on Instagram on the bus ride because their buddy has their phone. So now they're scrolling it together. Find out a little more about their world. Where are they spending time? Do they have a school device? How's that being used currently? Have you talked to their teachers at all about what's the expectation of school device usage? Um, Find out what it is that they like to do in their free time and learn more about that and join them in those things. So I think learning about their worlds is going to be a big part of it. And I know it can be dark, so don't overdo it with this, but find out the darker sides of those spaces where they're spending time. I mentioned Instagram, for example. Do some research. I'll invite you to come to our website, come to endsexualexploitation.org, and you can learn a lot about Instagram and some of the dangers that are there and some of the concerns we have about the way Meta is running things. And that way you can be on the lookout for, okay, looks like my kiddo really likes spending time on Instagram, and I'm going to let them keep using it, but I got to figure out what it is that they're doing there. So that might be you. In our house, we don't let them use Instagram at all. It's just a no. It's a no-go. It's not happening. But
I love
in
that.
your world, you might need to navigate that a bit. And so dads, don't let these spaces where your kids live be a complete mystery to you. I think that is a big mistake a lot of us make, really, as parents, moms, and dads all together. And then the last thing I would say is lift your voice, speak into
Mhm.
their lives. Let them know, number one, give them that affirmation that they're looking for, and usually will find elsewhere. We talked about sextortion and how that can happen, and it happens way more often than it ever should. But be that voice where they're no longer looking for affirmation elsewhere because their dad is giving it to them. The power of a father giving their child encouragement can't be overstated. This is something that I grew up with. I have an amazing dad, and a lot of times when I still think of those moments when he would give me that
Right.
affirmation, that's all I needed. And it's not because I didn't want to hear it from my mom. My mom was amazing at giving out compliments and very sweet with her language, but when my dad said it, it just hit different. And I just think that's the way we're wired, is that when dad says something and there's an element of pride that he feels in us and what we're doing, it elevates our focus on the right things. And so I would encourage you dads to speak up. So I would say don't tune out. I would say learn about the environments that your kids are spending time in and then speak into their lives, whether it's the encouragement that they need, whether it's a challenge they need to hear. Maybe they need to hear a tough truth sometimes as well. So those are the things I would tell dads to start with. And when you have really little kids, some of those things you might be like, well, I'm years away from that. Totally get it. I'll follow the
Mm.
advice from my buddy Patrick Erlinson over at FatherCon. Read to your kids. Sit down and play
Yes.
with them and read, like open a book and read to them. Read their book to them. Even if it's a long book, read a chapter book. Read a chapter a night or a couple times a week maybe. Just hearing your voice speak to them and read a story to them, maybe even pause and like reflect on a moment in the story that jumps out to you. They will learn so much and connect so much with that, and you'll be surprised at how much defenses that builds up for them as they step into the world.
See, this is excellent. This is what people need to hear. I mean, when we go into schools, Tim, when the kids, when they trust me and they start opening up, it's always the same thing. My
Mm,
parents don't listen to me. My parents tell me, I'm online, I'll talk to you later.
mhm,
I hear this over and over again. We're
right.
always suggesting read books together, talk about books. At least you're putting down the devices for a while, you're communicating. Just be there. Everything you're saying is such excellent information. And again, and sexual, on the website, we have so many free resources. We're going to have all that in the body of the video.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to for a minute. I want to focus on the boys, go back there when they
Okay.
become victims. There's a lot of stigma, I think.
Yeah.
It's very overwhelming. We've had parents that delete images, scream at the child,
Mm,
really get crazy about all of this.
yeah.
Therefore, they don't come forward, right? What do you want to say on that point? Because it's very important that we all take that breath, no
Yeah.
matter what happens. And you're the
Yeah.
expert. I'm going to let you speak on this. Not yell at the child, right? If they
Mhm.
come forward to us, especially because they'll never come forward to us again if we act like that. What do you say?
Right. Yeah, that is a first of all, I wanna empathize with the parents. There's a panic moment where you realize my child was either exposed to something that's horrifying or they have now made themselves vulnerable somehow. So I empathize with the emotional and sudden reaction, and sometimes it feels like a mental breakdown. "What are we gonna do? This is insane," and so you kind of react. I will tell you this, the best thing to do is to take a breath and make sure, especially in those moments, that that kiddo knows everything's gonna be okay. Even if in your mind you're not totally convinced of that, you need
Yes.
to reassure them, your child, everything's gonna be okay. Because I promise you, we've heard story after story that when these families are able to work through it together and unite together around this, they are able to heal, and over time, they are able to work through this and even have their voices be heard to help others. So everything's gonna be okay, number 1. And it here's one thing I would say for dads especially. I think this is true of moms too. It's okay to let your kids know when you've messed up. It's okay to be vulnerable and be like, "Oh, you know what? I made a mistake." Or maybe even go back into your past. "Hey, when I was your age, here's something really foolish that I did, and here's what I learned from it." As soon as you open up that vulnerability to your kids, it does a whole bunch of things. Number one, it makes them see you differently. They see you as a human being. Over time, I promise you, they will build a respect for you as they see that you've learned from your own mistakes and you're admitting you've even made mistakes. A lot of us struggle to do that because we don't want our kids to think we did something bad because now they'll think it's okay to do something bad. No, they won't. They'll see that you're a human being. They'll see that you learned from that, and maybe they'll avoid that because you're sharing what you've learned from it, but also they'll see, "Hey, my dad understands that mistakes happen, and maybe I can tell him about this one because he messed up when he was a kid too." So there's an element of trust that can be built there when we're vulnerable with our kids. Maybe it's even in a little moment of, "Hey, I just lost my temper. I shouldn't have said that. I'm really sorry. That was my bad. I shouldn't have done that." Or, "You know what? I didn't take you to the park like you asked, and I should have. I had no reason not to. Let's go to the park right now." Like, just that little apology, that acknowledgement of a mistake being made
Yeah.
goes such a long way. So when a kid hits that speed bump or maybe that absolute tragic moment, they can remember that, "Hey, my parents know what it's like to make a mistake and try to recover from it. Maybe I can talk to them." So that just leaves that door open a little bit. And I always advise parents when given the opportunity, be vulnerable with your kids and let them know that you're also a human being and that mistakes are part of life and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I'm always apologizing to my my kid. I'm like, "Oh," because I think out loud kind of when I talk, so I'm like,
Yeah.
"I shouldn't have said that, I'm sorry." That
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
I
it's
didn't mean I
so
didn't mean to
important.
say that, but
Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
actually appreciate it, so I can tell you
For
that.
sure.
Let me ask you, we've had a lot of discussions been out, in culture, society lately, this male toxic we're hearing a lot about this, whatever it's called, incels, things of that nature.
Oh, mhm.
Um, Boys so vulnerable, especially during that COVID period. Now, fast forward 4 or 5 years, where we're going. We've had these horrific shootings, just different things.
Yeah.
Want to weigh in at all about any of that? 764, that group we've been hearing about from the FBI.
Yeah. First of all, it's heartbreaking to see because as a dad and really just as a man seeing this happen, my heart goes out because I feel like these are people who don't know what their identity is. These are men, boys who don't know what their identity is, and they don't see either they don't see the value in themselves or in other human beings, and I don't know where that was lost. I think everyone's going to have a different story. It was lost somewhere along the way or damaged along the way, where their view of themselves or of others has dramatically changed. Maybe it was something they went through. Maybe they're a survivor of some kind of abuse. I think every
Yeah.
story is going to be a little bit different. But what I would say is the bottom line is identity and understanding that you are valued, you have dignity, you don't need to take out the frustrations and confusion and paranoia you have about life on others. If anything, uh, those should be conversations that we're having. And so here's one thing that I've noticed too with this online movement of whether it's toxic masculinity or any of these other things you just mentioned. Um, I'm not saying that having strong fathers in the home would fix all of it, but I do think when we see this, guys that are out there listening to this, uh, that's our call to raise better men,
Yeah.
to raise better boys. And I think that's true of all parents. I'm not letting moms off the hook here. Moms, if you're listening, it's on all of us as parents to raise better boys. But I think men especially. Boys learn by example. I mean, when you just look at a football team. When you see one guy, like if you've ever watched a football game and all of a sudden there's a big hit by the defense and the whole sideline goes crazy, their whole team plays better for like the next 2 quarters. They're just fired up. We see example and we respond to it. So when you see an example of how someone is treated, that's going to impact you. Maybe not right away. Maybe over time it'll chip away. So I think when we set good examples of how to treat people, how to treat women especially, and how to think of ourselves, it's going to shape the way that we behave in the world. And one example of that too, and not that we're talking about the issue of pornography today, but think about the issue of pornography.
No, I was
When
going
a
to bring that up. That was part of my next question. I was going to say they're deluged,
That's right. That's right.
online. It's not, they're not even looking for it. And the algorithms will just start sending them things like, so
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit, because it's very
Yeah.
important that we open up about that a little bit.
Yeah, when these boys are consuming pornographic content, especially in this day and age, when we know that so much pornography is centered around the idea of abuse or mistreatment of others, or I
Yes.
think it was 12% of content shown to new visitors. There was a study that was done of mainstream pornographic websites. Mainstream, I should put that in quotes. Pornographic websites. 12% of that content constituted sexual violence
Yes.
to new visitors. So like they're 1 out of every 10, more than 1 out of every 10 videos that you would see when you go to one of these sites was showing you something that constitutes violence and normalizing it and making it seem like something that is appealing or enjoyable to
Or
everyone
the way it's
involved.
supposed to be. You're supposed to
Right.
strangle a girl, or you're supposed to hit a
Right.
girl, or
Yeah, it's horrific, and there's entire categories on these websites
Mhm.
that are around, whether it's secrecy, hidden camera type content. A lot of times it's familial, so you'll have incestual content, but a lot of times you'll just have straight up violent content. And we can't even say a lot of the titles that we've seen about in some of these studies. Some of the titles that are listed
Yeah.
are we wouldn't even say in our conversation, but this is very normal. It's very normalized on these websites. And so when these boys are inundated with this, it absolutely adjusts the way that they think. Yes, as a parent, I would look at that and say, "Hey, that's bad for your." I think it's morally wrong. I think it's bad for your sexual development. I think it's bad for the way you treat women in relationships. Those things are all true. In addiction, there's addiction issues, of course. Those are all true. But I think even bigger than that is the idea of how to treat other human beings starts to
Yes.
morph over time. And you're not even seeing them as human beings anymore. Whether it's men or women, you're starting to see them as objects. And that's where objectification becomes a real dangerous thing. Think about the way that some of these people have acted out. We even see it in violence in our country. When you objectify someone based on something about them, whether it's a political view or maybe it's something sexual that you've just had ingrained in you through pornography, you're going to treat them differently. You're not going to treat them like a human being. And that might even go as far as to how you treat yourself and think about yourself. And we see this a lot with self harm and elements like that. So yes, the damages of pornography go way beyond what I believe is also very morally reprehensible, but it goes beyond that. It has a long term mental impact, and I think we're seeing it play out, especially with our young men.
Yeah, we're seeing so much of that from different therapists I talk to in healthcare, and they
Yeah.
also tell me, in emergency rooms, different healthcare in the emergency rooms we work with, how girls as young as 9, can you believe
Mm.
this, Tim? 9 are showing up with strangulation marks around their necks and things like that. And it really, there's nothing to say about that except morally, it's evil.
Right.
They're being shown this content.
Right.
Why? That's for another program. But
Yeah.
no, because I've always tried to figure out like why. Oh, people make money. Okay.
Yep.
Why? But also morally.
Right.
Is it going to be we're going to have babies now? Well, we'll leave that. Yes, because we'll leave that for a second, what I just said. Finish us up with, I could talk to you all day, and I hope you come back. And I spoke to you, but it was like I think it was over a year ago. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
when I
we had a
spoke to.
great
So,
discussion around Dirty Dozen list, I think. Yeah,
oh,
and
the dirty dozen we talked about.
it
We have to
all
talk.
ties together. Yeah.
I like to say it's a big wheel. We've got all these spokes. It's all
Mhm.
making the wheel go around. It is complex. It is overwhelming. We know this, but we've got the National Center on Sexual Exploitation to break it down, and the content and the resources and the blogging and the take actions and the policy work. I mean, you put out, which I use all the time with the Warriors, when you put out a call to action for legislation
Mhm.
to get people, very simple. You add your name and a zip code and you hit the send button. It's all
That's right.
done. We want to
Right.
give out as many free resources as we can. We want to do the heavy lifting for everybody. We want to make it easy for you. So again, I'll put everything in the body of the video so people can take, I found out, Tim, people will say to me, I like to take my time. Don't rattle off like the resources. I have to go back and look at
Yeah.
them. And
I'm the
this,
same way.
so,
Yeah.
so I said, okay, well, make sure everything's always in the body. They can take their
Yep.
time or they can contact me and ask questions. So rest assured, everybody, everything will be in the body of it. I'm glad we're talking about boys and dads and
Mhm.
fathers and men. We really need them to step up. But
Yeah.
give us one final kind of message. Well, it should never be final, but give us our final message for today.
Yeah.
Um, their irreplaceable role, really, Tim, in being with boys, talking to boys, being open with boys,
Yeah.
raising boys, to be safe and strong and dare I say, gentlemen in
Yeah.
this world today. Because I think that gentleman part, I don't know where that one went. That's another program too, but it's kind of
Mhm.
gone.
Yeah.
Tim, I may be in New
Agree.
York. I'm sorry, I may be older now. Nobody ever holds a door for me.
Oh, come on.
And they'll get off of my elevator and my husband is such a gentleman. They'll get off and just zoom past, almost knock me over on the elevator to get off first.
Mm.
And so we've lost that kind of raising of the manners, being a
Mhm.
gentleman. But what do you have to say about any of this?
Yeah. Yeah. The gentleman thing's an interesting one too. It just reminded me, we have one of our sons is 7 years old, and we were all going into the gym the other day, and he just kept holding the door, and I was like, "Buddy, we got to go in at
What?
some point." Like he was holding the door for people that were coming and going, and he didn't want to stop until everyone was clear coming and going.
Oh,
So that's always encouraging to see. I love that. I will say this: there is an acknowledgement we need to make as men, and as young men, whether young or old, whatever age you are, even if you're a teenager that happens to be listening to this, we need to acknowledge that these issues around sexual exploitation, there's a reality that most of them are perpetrated by guys just like me. They're people just like me. Men are the ones who are perpetrating most of these atrocities that you hear about.
it's true.
We have to acknowledge that. And then what do we do with that? That's the big question. That's my challenge to men in this. So, what do you do with that as a guy on your own, and what do you do about that as a father? Maybe you're raising young boys, or maybe as a mom who's raising young boys. I think we change the pattern. I think that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? We have to do the things we talked about already: leaning in, spending time with your kids, learning about their world, spending time reading with them, doing activities with them, giving them their own self value and self worth early at a young age, but then showing them how to treat other people. Yes,
Yes.
helping them to avoid pornography is going to be a big part of that, but you have to go beyond that. Show them what it means to little things like being a gentleman, but also show them what it means to be in a loving relationship, how to treat someone and that you're in a romantic dating or marriage relationship with. Show them what that looks like. You have to demonstrate that for these young men so we can start changing the tide. And I think that's one of the things we talk about in NCOSE all the time. How do we change the tide of exploitation? Because it feels like this oppressive wave, like a tsunami that you can't stop. The waters are coming in and you can't stop it. So over time, we're trying to change the tide to push it the other direction. And I think the next generation is the key. I think raising up boys and men who are willing to change that pattern is where it begins. And honestly, for me personally, on a personal level, it comes from my personal faith and the example that my heavenly Father has set for me with how he loves us. So that's the example I follow. But for all of us, it's going to be something different. So whether you're a person of faith or whether you're not, I think we all agree that there is a level of dignity that human beings have. And I think as men, we have a responsibility to step up in some areas of leadership on this. And if we don't like being told that it's mostly us causing the damage, I don't like being told that. It makes my skin crawl. It makes me mad. I'm like, well, I didn't do it. True. It's time to change it then. It's time to set the new precedent, set the new goal for these men that are coming up, these young guys that are being raised in an age of AI. And so how can we make sure that they are ready to take that mantle of reestablishing what it means to be no longer toxically masculine, but be masculine in a way that benefits society and benefits everyone. Be the type of masculine that
Yeah.
everyone wants to be around.
Because that is infectious. That
Agreed.
goodness, that kind of, and that's what I don't understand, Tim. If we could just, and it's starting, get it to snowball.
Mhm.
And it became cool, for lack of a better,
That's right.
cool to be that way. I really believe, I also believe we have to start very young, from the
Yeah.
time they can talk and walk, age appropriate, a little here, a little there. But I mean, I think you're doing the job. You're a shining example, Tim Nestor. The website is endsexualexploitation.org. Promise me it will not be another year. We will talk more frequently,
You
especially
got
I
it.
love everything you're saying about men and boys and men stepping up. We need to hear much more talk on that. And thank you for shining truth and light and all you're doing and sharing all of this. And I want to finish up with just telling you you're really a terrific warrior. And thank you for joining me today and taking the time. And it is so important that we talk about our boys and take care of them. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Appreciate being here.
Thanks, Tim.